Welcome to this episode of Wiki Walks, a short podcast devoted to some of the more intriguing and, who knew, articles that you can run across in the weird world of Wikipedia. I'm your host, Chris Grismer. We've all heard of commonplace delusions. Everybody's out to get me. People are laughing at me behind my back. Even politicians have some good in them. But there are some lesser known and much stranger ones. Among them is the Capgras Delusion, a phenomenon where the sufferer believes a person close to them has been replaced by an identical duplicate. It's an ideal setup for delusional thinking, as any evidence that the person is the genuine article is also evidence that the duplicate is just really convincing. But just imagine for a moment what it must be like to truly believe that a person or place you care about is an imposter. Someone you count on and feel close to. The comfort and safety of your own home is all some weird, unfathomable charade. As if the world wasn't already topsy-turvy with having dementia, now this trusted person or beloved place is somehow involved in a fraud with an identical imposter. How horrifying such a situation must be. Who and what can you trust? What is safe? Real? If you've ever played Fallout 4, these are the synths, basically. Capgras syndrome is what's known as delusional misidentification. It's the opposite of deja vu. People with Capgras syndrome think that their spouse, family members, or even their pets have been replaced with doubles. Imagine how disconcerting it would be to have someone who looks like a loved one sit down with you and know intimate details about your life, even though you're positive that person is just a superbly talented con artist. As little as we know about what causes Capgras, it took a long time before we knew even that much. The disorder was discovered in 1923 by French psychiatrist Joseph Capgras, describing a patient he referred to as Madame Macabre, who was convinced that her family and neighbors had all been replaced by lookalikes. She said that she'd had 80 husbands. One imposter would simply leave to make room for a new one. As the delusion became well known, it was assumed that it was a form of hysteria that only affected women. Not true, although it seems to favor women by a 60-40 split. And that it was purely psychological. Even when doctors began seeing brain lesions in Capgras sufferers, they were dismissed as unrelated until the 1980s, when researchers began to consider that Capgras might have a physiological cause. Capgras delusion is extremely rare. However, even that has a downside because it's so rare, it's been difficult to study or establish effective treatments. Therapy and antipsychotic medication are the typical approaches, but it's not a cure-all. But Capgras is not the only psychological delusion disorder out there, and we're going to look at some of them. For example, Fregoli syndrome, or Fregoli delusion, not to be confused with ravioli, give me the formuoli, was named after a quick change artist, Leopoldo Fregoli. The Fregoli delusion, or Fregoli syndrome, leads people to believe that the people around them are actually other people in disguise. For example, you see your doctor and think that it's actually your ex-girlfriend disguised as your doctor. One patient was convinced that two famous actresses put on the guise of her nurses and acquaintances in order to torment her. People with Fregoli delusion think that the people around them are capable of changing their appearance, dress, and gender in a matter of moments, like Mystique from X-Men or chameleons from Earth. Cotards syndrome, or Cotards delusion, describes the belief that one is missing organs or body parts or has become emotionally dead. Some people with Cotards think that they no longer exist because they don't feel anything. Cotards usually occurs in tandem with psychosis like schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. Patients' complaints run from, "My heart doesn't beat," to, "I don't have muscles." Someone with Cotards might think that his brain is rotting, like he's missing some of his insides or that he's just melted away. They honestly think they are walking dead. Another one is intermetamorphosis. People with intermetamorphosis think that familiar people in their lives have switched identities, both physically and psychologically. While Fregoli syndrome involves just a physical transformation, intermetamorphosis includes the self. You might, for instance, decide that your father is really your brother, and every time you see your father, you see him as having the physical and psychological attributes of your brother. The syndrome of subjective doubles is a rare delusional misidentification syndrome in which a person experiences the delusion that they have a double or a doppelganger with the same appearance, but usually with different character traits, that's leading a life of its own out there. Clonal pluralization of the self is where a person believes that instead of having a double of yourself, just a doppelganger running around, that you have multiple versions of you that are out there causing havoc. Mirrored self-misidentification is a delusional belief that one's reflection in the mirror is another person, typically a younger or second version of oneself, a stranger or even a relative. Sort of like a misadapted Dorian Gray painting right in front of you. Reduplicative paramnesia is both difficult to say, and it's a delusional belief that a place or location has been duplicated, existing in two or more places simultaneously, and that it's been relocated to another site, sort of like the Upside Down. People with delusional parasitosis have an unshakable false belief that they're infested with insects and worms and mites and lice and fleas and other organisms. Some people also believe that parasites have infested their homes, surroundings, and clothing. They often provide vivid descriptions of how the organisms enter their bodies via the skin and other body openings and move around, all over. The sensations of itching and crawling and irritation, are you scratching yourself right now, by the way, are very real to them. In an effort to rid themselves of these sensations, people may scratch or pick out or mutilate their skin enough to cause sores and ulcers. Such sores often then become infected. Other people apply various chemicals or disinfectants to their skins, and such chemicals may cause skin irritation or allergic reaction. People will bring samples of hair and skin and debris, such as dried scabs, dust, lint, to their doctor to prove that the infestation is real. And people may put the samples on a microscope slide or carry them in a container. They go all out. Delusional parasitosis most often affects people over 50 and women. But it's pretty rare, unless, of course, you are having withdrawals of methamphetamines, in which case it is a classic symptom. Meth, not even once. And lastly is one we're all familiar with, deja vu. Deja vu isn't a delusional misidentification syndrome, but it can be just as disconcerting. Now, you see, deja vu happens to a lot of us. Of course, you see something and immediately feel like it's something you've seen before. Or someone says something and you look around at the comment and the environment and everything. You could swear it's already happened, a glitch in the matrix, so to speak. But some people have chronic deja vu. They remember things that never happened, like already watching the news, going to a friend's funeral, or meeting someone for the first time. For them, nothing is new. One man said he wouldn't go to a doctor to find out what was wrong with him because he'd already been. Except he had not. Your brain is a delicate organ, and these most unfortunate disorders often stem from some type of trauma, be it mental or physical. Many of them are brought on as a result of traumatic brain injuries from accidents. So the next time you talk to someone who might be your clone, your uncle, father, sister, mom, or Jamie Lee Curtis / Lindsay Lohan doing a Freaky Friday swap, but this time with missing organs, if they tell you that you need to make sure you wear a helmet, well, they're not that delusional. You might just want to hear them out.